a few reasons, or rather the motto of this webinar. This webinar is being held to encourage the students, or rather the aspirants of law, and to motivate them in this new virtual world of education. Secondly, and also to inspire and ignite the participants to have a wonderful, knowledgeable experience with our speakers. It's a gentle request to all my participants present here to leave your questions at the chat box, which we will come back to you at the end of our session. Now, without a moment of time, we would like to have our first speaker with us. I would like to have Sabyasachi Chakrabarty Chatterjee sir to have the session.
Should I start?
Take over.
Should I start? Yeah. Thank you so much, Locus Standi, for giving me this opportunity to share my views with the law students who are going to come to the profession or anywhere else by using the knowledge which they have learned in this 5 years course. I would like to say a few words to the students, particularly those students who are presently facing a very, very turbulent time due to the outbreak of COVID-19 throughout the world. The law students are particularly now, they are thinking about their future. They don't know when their results are coming out. Today only the Bar Council of India has decided to promote all law students except the final year law students. I just have come across the news somewhere I was looking at. They actually don't know what are they going to do once they get themselves enrolled as lawyers. What I would like to tell you that COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to rethink and relook about the entire understanding of law as a subject. The law, as we have understood till today, was predominantly a subject matter for the legal professionals who are going to practice law in the court, or subject matter for legal assistants who will be assisting the big corporate houses, or a subject matter for education for the academia who are going to contribute in research and academics of law. But actually, according to me, this is a wrong notion about law, and we need to make a breakthrough to this entire proposition by introducing a new understanding of the subject. Sometimes the people ask me, what do you learn in your 5-year course? I used to tell them, and still I'll be telling you, that we only learn how to read law. It's just the reading method of law which is being taught in law schools and universities in 5 years course. That is the object of the legal education. We do not actually learn law in 5 years. It is not possible. But the knowledge of understanding law, knowledge of analyzing law will empower you to do something in real field of law when you are going to deal with the subject. So it is basically law. It is going to get its own shape when it is mixed up with the subject itself. Like I can tell you, the police officer expected to know. I'm not talking about the reality actually, but expected to know more about police code and their regular interpret it, how to use it. So therefore, law itself is a technical subject which we learn. And in the process of learning, we actually try to learn about the subject itself, and we know the technicalities itself. So COVID-19 has actually given you a chance to relook at the entire concept of law, because we are now dealing with some new concepts, like we are talking about virtual court, we are talking about e-court, we are talking about even artificial intelligence based judges, we are talking about many other things. So these are the new introduction in the subject. Therefore, a lot of new issues which are coming up need to be clubbed and converged with law, and a lot of laws need to be regulated, framed, and come up in order to deal with the new situation. So these are the areas which we actually can look for. It gives you enormous opportunity after COVID-19. So those who are thinking that there is nothing, no work for us to do, what to do, those who are actually thinking that after this post-COVID-19, we are not going to get any opportunity to work, I would rather advise you, don't worry, it is going to give you a huge opportunity, not only in the court, but everywhere. Every aspect of life needs a lawyer right now. You need to have lawyers in terms of framing of policy, in terms of adjudicating lot of private disputes. You need to know legal techniques in order to understand the judicial process, and you need to know about the application of law, particularly when it is to be applied in the recent technological time or era which we are going through. I would like to tell you, I'd like to give you an example. You know about law and technology. Today we are becoming more dependent on technology, even for conducting seminars, we are using technologies. So the term seminar has been converted into this term webinar. So these are the things which are going to be changed. We have seen the major, massive revolution in social media. What are you doing in social media? It's basically the work we normally do in our real life. We actually try to do it in social media. Now everybody is trying to do it. Like business is being done, you know about the recent deal between Jio and Facebook. So a lot of things will come up, a lot of issues will come up, a lot of new problems will come up. You know, even these are going to be, it's going to be going to create a lot of disputes, and they're going to be reached before the court. Being a practitioner of law, I can tell you, I did not know about it. The law and public health could be a big subject matter of our practice, even before 1 month before COVID-19 pandemic. We knew that law and public health, it is basically the subject like, for the practitioners in the consumer courts, or those lawyers who are going to practice somewhere else, who wants to do on negligence law, who wants to deal with the doctor's responsibility and others. But now, law and public health has become a very big constitutional issue, and all the courts of India have been flooded with thousands of new matters related to COVID-19. You know, very recently, one of the very prominent jurists of our country has advised all lawyers and law students to read the judgment of Calcutta High Court regarding COVID-19 pandemic. Because these are coming up, the new issues which are coming up. We know issues related to privacy, issues related to technology, issues related to application of artificial intelligence, about the virtual court itself. Lot of things, lot of opportunity you are going to get. But the thing, you need to prepare yourself to face the challenge. Why it is a challenge? As I said, the wrong notion has been set up for this legal education. We consider legal education as the education of law itself, but we do not consider legal education as a matter of learning the technique of reading law. What has been changed by introduction of this national law school scheme in the country, and we have seen the generation-wise legal educational reforms in our country. And now I think the traditional law schools are also trying to adopt so many methodologies, particularly because of the emergence of a very, very brilliant group of law students in the academia. Good students are now coming to academics and they're contributing. And now things are getting changed. So I think there are people from academics whom even I want to hear and listen to regarding the convergence between this legal education and legal profession, as well as the entire world of law. Actually being the lawyer, being a law teacher, or being a student of law, we have a pass to enter into any subjects of the world. We need to be the master of everything by using our techniques and learning the things. Thank you so much. All the best. And I would like to answer the queries and questions you have got. Please drop the questions. And I think according to the moderators' convenience, we'll be answering the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It was really insightful. So, moving on to our next speaker, she is a gold medalist and also a professor at NLU Jodhpur. I would like to have Mrs. Sayantani Bagchi Bhattacharya ma'am to take over the session.
Very good evening. Rajashri, am I audible? Am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am, you are absolutely audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, one and all present here this evening. Our guest speakers and all of us, the students. I'm absolutely delighted to be a part of this wonderful gathering today. And without wasting much time, I would get into the point. And all of you must, and I'm sure all of you would agree to the fact that law itself is a very dynamic subject. And learning law involves learning so many different subjects at the same time, which would include subjects like political science, sociology, economics, and definitely mainstream science as well. So we know that law is extremely dynamic, and the day we decide to get into this particular domain, we also accept the fact that our entire life will be dedicated towards learning the subject, because it is so vast that a single life might not be enough to know the subject in its entirety. Now, my presentation will be limited to what are the things, how do we proceed, or how the first thing that we need to talk about is how do we fetch a law degree, or how do we enroll ourselves into this particular course. Now, the first thing we need to remember is, firstly, because most of us here, you would definitely agree with me on this point, that there are many of us who consider that we will study law because we couldn't be a part of any other discourse, or let's keep it as the last option. But as of now, I am definite and I'm very sure that perceptions have changed and our thoughts about the legal profession have undergone a considerable metamorphosis. And considering that particular factor, we see that there are a number of people, there are a number of students, brilliant students, who want to take up this as a profession. So considering this, what do we see? The first thing that I said, how do you get a law degree, or the first and foremost requirement towards entering this field of law? So we have seen that there are a number of universities, we have law colleges, we have private institutions, we have national law schools, which conduct different examinations, entrance examinations, or let's say, for instance, they have something called CLAT. So you need to first clear this particular examination and then get into law school. And once you get into law school, there are so many different thoughts. Like, there are two kinds of students whom I've come across till date. The ones who are very clear with respect to what they intend to do after they pass out, and the ones whose vision is not that very clear and have different kind of thoughts in their minds. Now, please try to remember that it is not very easy to determine or to identify the exact profession that you would like to take up in the near future. And it is, of course, it requires a lot of deliberation, a lot of thought. And what you must do is, in the process, when you are pursuing law, when you are in the course of the 5-year course, you must definitely consider doing a number of things rather than only sticking to your course and what it requires you to do and your examinations. I would also suggest you to get into, you may go for different moot courts, you may definitely go for MUNs, you may definitely go for let's say debate competitions parallelly, because see, these things will enhance your public speaking abilities, which I think all of us would again agree to is that which is very important for this profession. You must know how to speak before the public, how to address gatherings of any amount of people. Now, after you're done with this, now let's say when it comes to writing, you must develop the art of writing certain things, because even if you go for litigation, you go for academics, you go for any other profession, you go for research, writing becomes a significant aspect of it. So when you know how to write, so write for different blogs that have been meticulously following Gautam Bhatia's blog called The Indian Constitutional Law and Philosophy, which is very nice and very informative when it comes to its content. So write for different blogs, write articles, and when you write something, please make sure we have a habit, especially in our law school, to refer to any sources whatsoever. please Please ensure that the sources that you refer to are very authentic. Since I belong to the legal academia and I'm in a position to just confine myself to that. You may refer to different sources, like you have JSTOR, you have Heen Online, you have Shodh Ganga, you have, for downloading books, you may refer to things like libgen.is, pdfdrive.net. So you can get hold of proper actual books, which are considered to be the most authentic sources, the secondary sources of, so considering all these things, now beyond this, as I said, this is when it comes to writing. Parallelly, you can also intern, right, in the process, because as I have always been telling that knowing the practical dimensions of law also become very pertinent for a student of law, because until and unless we are acquainted with the practical dimensions, I don't think learning law is worth it. So considering that particular aspect, so in order to learn the practical dimensions, don't merely for the sake of it go to court and sit with somebody and kind of waste your time. Rather, intern with a person from whom you can learn, not only from the person concerned, but from all of the people that you come across. And people intern with judges, with advocates, and numerous other people. So develop the habit, and you must have the thirst to learn, people. This is the core of of learning anything for that matter. You must develop the thirst to know anything and everything. And remember, once you clear or once you're done with your graduation, there's something that always pesters us, and that is most importantly, what next. Now we have a degree with us, what next? Please ensure that by the time you complete law school, you are in a position to identify your research interest. That is very pertinent. Why? Because once you identify your liking and disliking, you will be in a position, your 90% of the problem is solved, and that's how you proceed. Now there are a number of options which are open to us. You can go for judicial services, you can go for academics, you can go for litigation, you can go for civil services, you can go for research, which is again a very important and a very it's an emerging field, which is very important in my opinion, because in order to be, I'm sure SPC sir is with us, and we are very fortunate to have him. And he will be in a better position to guide you on the aspects of research. But these are the prospects. These are the options which you have immediately after passing out of law school. But people, when, for instance, you end up being in a law firm, if you end up being in a law firm and then you realize that this is not meant for me, or you realize that this is not my cup of tea, don't think or overthink. You may immediately consider or ask yourself what suits me the best, right? Making or taking a wrong decision or taking a decision and then repenting is not the solution. You will have to figure out your preferences, your likes and dislikes. So today, if you end up being in a law firm and then you realize that no, it's not my cup of tea, feel free to explore the other possibilities. Don't feel disheartened. Don't feel as if you have nothing else to do. So considering that, I would definitely request you that first determine right at the time when you are in law school that what is the exact path that you want to pursue. So that will solve 90% of your problem, and then you follow that path meticulously and don't think or rethink. Give your best, and you must be dedicated in all your endeavors. So I think within this short span of time, this is all I could convey. I would definitely look forward to interacting more with you people. And with this, I conclude. So thank you once again for having me here. So with this, I conclude. Yes, Rajeshri.
Thank you, ma'am, so much for encouraging us today here. So I would like to move on to our third speaker, that is Saheli Chakrabarty. She is a very dear lady working as a social activist since the past few years and also a member of the Lions Club International. She is pursuing her LLM from NUJs. So Saheli, I would request you to preside over the session.
Um, Thank you, Rajshri, firstly for the introduction, which is kind of something I did not expect. I'm not a social activist, firstly. Coming to the basic context that firstly, what the idea that you're looking from my part of what I'm going to be speaking is completely not a lecture or a session. It would be something that I want to say as a student, or I would have thought a student would be doing at this point in time. Considering in this case or in this scenario, when the lockdown is at this primarily, if there's one field that is not yet unlocked in context of it, like various businesses have opened, but what is exactly the academicians or the students, what is exactly the next step? And every student have this question in mind, because especially the students who are in the fifth year, in the verge of passing out, or the fourth year students, which they do not know what exactly next, where exactly they go next to. So considering all of these situations, and especially the students who are preparing for the competitive exams for LLM, or even planning to go abroad or were planning to go abroad, let's consider that this situation is not something bad. Let's consider it to be a turning point. And well, the question's already coming on LLMs. Well, let's just consider this entire lockdown as our turning point to figure out what do we want to do, and how to make this lockdown into a productive lockdown, or rather a productive vacation, if I may call that. This is something which our professors have been telling, that just don't sit back at home and bicker about how the number of cases of COVID-19 is increasing in the country, or what should be done, what has to be done. If you want the change, then you be the change. And if you want to be the change, then let us start by knowing that how do we ourselves change our own, a pattern of lockdown. So with that, I would like to say that I'm referring to this entire session as how do you enhance your curriculum vitae, or CV as we refer to it. This CV that I'm talking is specifically is a generalization of the number of things that you can do, and the term I'm referring to is at CV. Because under CV, you can have your leadership qualities, you will have your academic qualifications, you will have your moot courts, internships, and even your research publications and paper presentations. To start with, ma'am has already touched upon all those, the general arenas that you can do about. I'll try to go into the specificity of those things, because I think if you do not know where to start, this webinar could help you to just find that founding stone, and then you can probably take your steps with each experiences and new things that you get to know. To start with, I wanted to come to this point that, listen, I mean, let's just agree to this fact that online classes for us is mundane, because we do not have that interaction. So why don't we just not limit ourselves to these, academic courses only from our colleges and, our classrooms, and start learning more new things. And how do we learn these things? please do not think of any social media and stuff like that. The first thing that we can enhance our knowledge by is enrolling to these online courses. Some of them you can find in edX, some of them you can find in Coursera. These things are something that you can learn by while sitting at home, and some of them are free courses. While you can think of, why don't I learn something about the American law? Why don't I think something about the common law? I mean, we are a part of the common law system, but still, like something more basic, something more like, I want to know what the jurisprudence of probably the medical science that's happening right now. What is the jurisprudence of the medical law that's there in considering the situation? And the fact that today COVID-19 is not a situation of a national emergency, it's an international pandemic. Considering that, the international law is something that you should know or should touch upon, because if you're appearing for any competitive exams and if you're appearing for any such uh, interviews also, you should be ready with the international laws. You should be ready with how the COVID-19 is affecting the various international laws, the international business law, international refugee law, even the international trade laws. So how do you learn these things? Mostly we are not very accustomed to books because we do not have the books in our home at library. Why don't we enroll to these online courses and also get the certificates, which will help us enhancing and boosting our CVs when we go to any interview, or even let's say we go for any higher education. The next thing that you can, I mentioned Coursera, edX, Harvard, Cambridge, Columbia. There are various universities who have their own sites and they're giving you free courses, and some are for payment for the certificate. The second thing that I wanted to speak about, the MOOC, as we call it. Some national law universities have their own courses, which is paid, but at the same time, the certificates that you get from these national law universities are going to be highly valuable for the CVs. For let's say in the next 3 months, how do you have the upper edge over your own batchmates? Something that the person also has done, something you have also done. What is that upper edge? What is that extra, brownie point that you have in your CV? Extra knowledge, extra experience, and these are the few things that you can gain knowledge as well as your experience. The second thing that I wanted to speak about is the publications and presentations. There are legal journalism that you can try upon. Maybe there are certain publications which you are thinking it's too heavy hearted, as in, let's say I want to write about refugee in the Asian refugee international law journal, or let's say international refugee journal, or that for that matters, there are international law on artificial intelligence and scientific laws. These journals are international laws where various scholars from international periphery are writing about. If you think you are not ready for it and you think your research is not to that level, why don't we start about legal journalism? The opinions that you are blotting all over the social media, why don't we start writing on any newspaper editorials or even insights? There are certain papers who are looking for young and fresh writing about their opinion, about their analysis of each law. Let's say you start with even CRPC. What are the benefits? What are the critically analyzing, and how can you even compare it with any other country's law or the procedural law, and how you think that it should be changed, or for that matter, whatever suggestions are. One of them is legal journalism. The other one is, instead of probably you think that somebody is not going to accept your paper or somebody is not going to accept your writing, why don't you start your own blog? You don't need to wait for somebody else's blog to feature your writing. Why don't you start your own legal blog? And to state that, I can say that there are certain students who got their admissions in very prestigious universities for their masters and even PhD basis of their legal blog, how well they have maintained their consistency in their own legal blogs, how well they've researched on various things. That is what they've got the admission basis of. The third thing, of course, is journal and paper presentations. Paper presentations, considering the fact that we are in the online medium, there are very few webinars that they are allowing for paper presentations. Mostly is about journals. There are various journals who have given you opportunities for publishing, and especially right now there are mostly all the journals are looking for write-ups on COVID-19. What is after the procedural law, after that what is before that, how the new normal would look like. So these are the contemporary topics that you can tap upon. More importantly, if you think that you are not well read, well researched about these things, and you're not very comfortable with these arenas, why don't you try about book review? Why don't you try about case commentary? These are also part of the journal. These are also part of a research writing. You can try taking up a case. Let's say I take Sabarimala case, and I think that there are certain things that I would want to comment on it. That this could have been this, that could have been this could have been analyzed with that law, or what could have been the constitutional benefits, or what have been the constitutional mistakes, or whatever that you think needs to be commented on. That is one part of the case commentary which also becomes a part of your research. Or a book review. Take a book which you think, of course, not Chetan Bhagat books for goddamn sake, something which is to do with the legal periphery. Take the book, review it, what you think may have been written in a better way, which could have, which, or rather the positive as well as the negative, and bring them in the table and let the reader understand what are the positive and the negative traits. Before you write in any publication, which is any book, any or let's say a journal, try to find out uh, whether it is in the UGC care list. What is UGC care list? UGC is basically the one who is basically guiding and monitoring all the colleges and universities. They bring out a care list which mentions of all the journals which they think are authorized, or in other words, it's valid. We already are aware that if you are publishing your articles by paying a fee, it is not to be held a valid research. So let's come back to the same question again. So refer when you're publishing anything, just think of it whether that publication or that what is the ISN number, ISBN number, check on all of these things because you don't want it to get into trouble. Ma'am had already referred to you, Shantini ma'am has already referred to you about those specific places or let's say search engines that you can refer to. But I would like to say that do not just refer to any search engines. Rather try to, if you do not have access to it, but you can, we are all having friends all over. Somebody might be a student of Symbiosis, somebody might be a student of any NLUs, somebody might be a student of any international universities also. Use your own social media credits to get access to these friends who can get you these journals also. Start reading the e-journals. What happens is you have a writing style. If you start increasing or reading these journals, you understand how the paper needs to be written. From what are your research questions? What do you need to start on? What is your hypothesis? What do you need to conclude with? What are your suggestions of how do you break your writing? Probably starting a write-up and also comparing it with some other write-up from other journals will help you learn or know the mistakes or where you stand and where you have to go. Well, another thing that I wanted to add is if you've written anything for that matters, go for a proofreading. Go to a person who is, if not a maestro in that field, but somebody who has acquired a great knowledge in that stream. So for that matters, if I'm writing a paper on cyber security or even IPR, I would definitely go to SPC sir to get him a proofreading done, because if not him, then who else will I get go to? Or maybe if I'm writing something on constitutional law, I would definitely go to Shantini ma'am for a proofreading done, because their knowledge and their experience is also something that you would need in your own paper to make it a more structured, to make it a more concrete paper. Because 50 years down the line, if you are becoming an academician or a researcher, you want to go back to that paper and know that this is where I started and this is where I've come. So my time is already over. I wanted to speak about the international internships and things like that. If there's free time after this entire session, maybe I can speak about it. So I guess Rajshri, you can take over, and if there's any questions, I can lead to them a little later.
Thank you, Saheli. It was really so informative. So we move on to our last speaker, but not the least one. We have our very favorite Shambhu sir with us, Shambhu Prasad Chakrabarty, who is an extremely ordinary scholar in almost all prospects of law, and he is the head of CRSGPP and WBNUJ. Sir, can we have you with us?
Yes, I think it's my privilege to be a part of this August gathering this evening, and thank you, Rajshri, for organizing this webinar and identifying a list of a perfect blend of people who can really give the correct and most important insight that a lot of people are willing to get, especially when everything is at a standstill. Since we have a scarcity of time, I would not go deep into research and everything else. But what I would say at this juncture is that we all are in research, in whatever profession we are in whatever capacity we are in. We are always doing a research. Let's say, for example, our erudite first speaker, advocate sir, is always in research, especially when a particular matter comes down to an advocate. The first thing that he does is to look into the various aspects, various dimensions, the various precedents, the various enactments, the various avenues by which he can provide relief to the person who needs that the most. So it's like, something which I would say is something which is a sine qua non. Now, say for example, when I'm planning to buy a mobile phone, the first thing that I do is Google it, try to find out what is the best that my money can buy. Now, the same thing happens with profession nowadays. And I think, the days are gone when the parents and their parents were in a position to determine what we're going to do in our respective lives. So under the same scenario, especially those people who are interested in providing public service in the form of providing justice to the people at large and not look into their personal profit. I think the law is the only profession that you can be in. I've never seen a person who is an advocate and is not a researcher and not a very good researcher. If you go to the court and you look at the arguments, it's all about the research. It's all about their looking into the things, looking at the details, minute details, identifying and analyzing those details with the specific laws and general laws to provide justice to the people at large. Now, when it comes to academia, there are many people who are interested in coming down to academics. I think the same thing applies to them as well, research. And without research, without studying, without going deep into the details, the only thing that you can end up with is in a position where you are not confident, where you're not good into what you're speaking, what you're thinking, what you're expressing. And that's something which you cannot do under the current scenario, the current competition, and the competition in the sense, not between two people, but between the need of the hour, the challenge that the hour provides before you, and whether you're living up to it. It's as simple as a challenge that is before an advocate. The advocate knows very well that exactly what is the point that can come against him, and which will defeat him instantly. And the only thing that he prays in the court is that the other side has not identified that point and raised that point before him, neither the judge do that. So the same thing happens with those people who are going for academia, who are going for making and writing a paper. It's impossible to do everything. And the only thing that we can do is through research. The problem, I would say, with research in our country, and especially our state, is that there is not a professional way, especially in the universities and colleges, where they teach the students how to do proper research. Whether they're making their papers, whether they're making their analysis, whether they're writing a judgment, whether analyzing a judgment and writing it before the examination or for anybody. So I think, the first thing that I would say is that we need a lot of good professionals to come into legal teaching. It's not necessary that, you have to be an academician to teach law. And I think this is the juncture where I think, this COVID-19 has brought us in. And I think, who can be a better teacher than an advocate who is fighting every day on domestic violence laws and teaching them to the young students and identifying them the avenues that the women and the elderly people and even the young children are facing because of the domestic violence, and what an academician can do without the help of a lawyer, without the help of a judge. So I think, today everything needs to be interdisciplinary. Without interdisciplinary, there cannot be proper research, whether it's legal research, whether it's legal journalism, whether it's writing a paper, whether it's doing something. We need to understand that we are not supposed to do for the sake of doing it, just like that of a lawyer. A lawyer is doing it for a specific objective. That is not something which an academic is doing. An academic is writing a paper because the academic needs API points. And that is something which you should not do. But then again, the reason why we keep on insisting young people to keep on writing on these papers is because the bridge, the gap is still there. We have not bridged the gap between legal professionalism and academia. And I think, today we are in a juncture where we can do this. And if you take into consideration the various law schools, and the reason why these law schools actually came up is primarily because of the American way of doing law teaching. And if you look into Harvard, Yale, Cambridge, many other international renowned law schools across the world, you'll find there two classes of law teachers. One who comes from academia and the other one who comes from practice. Now, here in our country, we lack that very much because of certain rules and regulations, because of certain government orders which comes up and imposes specific time that the legal practitioner would have to spend with the law students. So these things, I think, needs to be supplemented and complemented with the information technology that we are right now applying. If during the evening, the young students during a small adda, just like what we're doing right now, can bring in an advocate and he talks about a particular case, and what can be even better than this. So I think, we need to take research seriously, not from the standpoint of just doing research, just because of API points, just because of anything else, but with a specific objective. Majority of the students who are studying law at this moment and who are teaching law at this moment are those people which can be compared with a ship without a specific destination. So we have to identify the destination first and then start sailing the ship. The 25, 27 people who are listening today needs to identify this at the very inception. What is your goal? What is your objective? Unless and until you are clear with the objective, irrespective of your clarity of mind when it comes to legal education, irrespective of your way of speaking, quality of speaking, your quality of writing research papers would be absolutely futile. Because you'll end up being an intellectual without doing something for the society. Now, if you look into the challenge that COVID-19 has brought in, you'll find across the world, whether it's USA, whether it's UK, whether it's Germany, whether it's China, everyone is coming up with vaccines. Where is India? Now, if we raise these questions, you'll find that a country with 130 crore people do not have a good lab to work on with. So if there is dearth of good lab, then where would the research be conducted? Where there will be investment? So majority of the people, majority of the Indians who are in research, hardcore research, if you look at the Nobel laureate, he's also from India recently, and he is located not in Calcutta, but he is in USA. Why he is in US? If you look into the research that has been done by the Indians in NASA, in various other countries, and various other organizations, you'll find the reason behind this is lack of knowledge as to investment in research, Now, there are so many law schools. How many research centers are there in these law schools? And if we go for an audit as to what these research centers have done during the last 10 years or 20 years from the beginning of the law schools. So these are the questions that we need to prospect. And then again, if a law school with a research center is doing something, it is not being acknowledged. It's not being promoted. It's not being applicable. So the main purpose of research centers is to work hand in hand with the government and the problems of the government, the challenges that the government faces. Now, unless and until this comes down to the law school, and unless and until these research centers are connected with the law faculties who transfer these questions, these challenges to other people, young students, young minds, how can these young minds start thinking of addressing these challenges and come back to these faculties, where these faculties come up with a solution, and this solution is sent to the state so that the state can adapt mechanism to address these challenges. So these things, this mechanism is very important. And unless and until this mechanism is is used, I think, we still will be the first thing that I would suggest all my young people who are listening here is that you first choose what you want to do. You need to find out a goal, whether you want to be a hardcore practitioner, you want to go to academia, you want to be a researcher, you want to be a politician, you want to be a legal journalist. What do you really want to become? And I would definitely request Rajeshri to find out, people for another webinar where you can help these people and other people also to identify what is the right choice for them. It's important that the people are aware of the options, are aware of the various avenues that's important and that can be explored, because unless and until they are aware of the things, how relevant will be for them to come back home and study. It's not about doing an LLM at a national law school or in a country outside India. It's about what are you going to do with this LLM? What paper are you working on? Are you working on cyber law? If you're working on cyber law, and if you don't have a place to study in India, it's quite relevant to go outside India and study on cyber crimes and laws. If you're working on medical laws, medical ethics, I have not found any national law school having any specialized master course on that. So I think it's quite relevant if a person goes to King's College or Queen's to London to a particular person is aware of what the person is willing to do and what are the ways by which they can achieve these goals, and then come back to India, start practicing, work here after a couple of years of work experience there. So I think all of you people need to know exactly what you're planning to do, and those people who thinks that we don't have the money to study at the law schools, we don't have the money to go abroad and study. It's very easy for you people to say. Well, let me tell you that again, you need to be given information about the availability of scholars. That for a couple of years. So I think I will not blame anyone you for. I would blame it to people like us. Perhaps we have not got enough time with you all. We have not given enough time to you people to make you people understand the various avenues that's available for you people to explore. I think in the days to come, especially when we are actually within a web and we cannot go out as such, and we're not supposed to go out also because of the coronavirus outbreak. I think we can really think of coming back again, sit down together, talk one-to-one, and think what are the avenues that's there with you and what will be best for you. I think, every one of us has a right to an informed consent. Thank you so much.
So it was really wonderful to have you with us today. Any questions from the participants today? So I will be putting the first question. This question is for Shantani ma'am, for you. Is it necessary to do LLM first and then appear for the judicial examinations? Because that would help me to gain more about the course in details. Uh, there are such students, ma'am, who have heard that it is like suggested always that LLM is shorter than judicial. So, ma'am, will you please tell about this?
Am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am.
See, the objective behind, see, technically speaking, LLM is done by the ones who are interested to pursue academics, technically speaking. And thereafter, we have provisions for PhD and further studies, postdoctoral studies. But here, when you say whether it is important for anybody to pursue their LLM before appearing for judicial services or not, I think this question is, it is absolutely personal to the person who, because if you want to specialize in something, if you intend to gain some specialized knowledge, I think there is nothing that would restrict you from doing an LLM, and that is always a wonderful option. So, but whatever it is, I feel personally that once you are in a flow, like you have completed your LLB, and thereafter you enroll yourself for LLM, and thereafter, if you further intend to go for higher studies like PhD, you are always welcome. And I think it's a wonderful thing, and it's always a good option to enhance your knowledge. And appearing for judiciary does not require LLM per se, but I think LLB is enough. It's the criteria for appearing for judicial services. So doing an LLM is absolutely your choice, and the ultimate outcome would be it would enhance your knowledge in a specific direction. Of course, your research interest that could be enhanced to a great extent.
Thank you, ma'am. So the next question is for Sabyasachi sir. Sir, would you please tell that how the students who are in the intermediate semesters, how can they prepare for their internships? Hello, sir.
Audible? Am I audible now?
Sir, am I audible to you?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes, sir.
See, look, internship is something. See, doing internship for this, doing the sake of doing it is not going to give you more benefit. It's basically the choice, as our another panelist, Shambhu Prasad Chakrabarty sir, has identified this very important word, that choice, how this choice has to be developed. And this choice has to be developed on the basis of the knowledge and skill, existing knowledge and skill, and the interest. The students need to grow their interest in the subject, then only they can do the internship. The students might have interest and inclination towards judicial work. He should go for about the acumen qualities which a judge is having. A student who has an inclination towards court, he should go to the court along with a lawyer. Might not be interested in corporate law and ultimately reach to a corporate law firm. He will never learn anything. He should have an interest. First of all, he needs to identify the number two, as many of these speakers today, they have a common skill of research. It's a common thread which is existing in all of our speeches today, that is research. Somebody is telling that research has to be done on the basis of reading, writing, everything. Somebody is telling by identifying the area. I know the lawyers. I think all of you have read this book written by Valius Nariman, Before Memory Fades. He starts his book by describing the architecture of Bombay High Court. Describing the architecture of Bombay High Court, because this architecture is connected with justice delivery system. Every system, you need to learn the system. So there has to be an interest which should be grown up amongst the law students about the system. We have a crisis in learning the system. I can give you an example of my own experience. I was always interested to go for litigation. So in my college days, I have done internship according to my interest. I went to some of the litigation firm, worked with some lawyers, everything. But later I decided to learn something about the research. Ultimately, that did not work for my career, but I went to NUJS, learned something there in the NUJS library, found a book called Law and Music. I found a book called Law and Shakespeare. You tell me that how many of the law students in India will take a pain to do a research on law and Tagore? This is a research. I'm not talking about the subject, but interest, how to develop the interest. Because many of you might be interested in literature. You are fond of Tagore's book, but you will never take it seriously as a subject matter of research on this subject. You can converge these two and make a new book. That will help. So ultimately, you have to pick up the subject, identify the area. Now I'll tell you, in our Calcutta High Court area, there are many students who you'll find them roaming here and there in some office or others, some firms. They're doing extremely well. Some of them are working with judges. But I'll tell you, you have to choose it according to your need. What do you want? Sometimes I feel that doing an internship with someone who is working in the lower court, sometimes it is also beneficial for a student who wants to opt for the practice, because this is very interesting. He will have to start his litigation from there. If he starts his practicing career from the district court, he will learn the technicalities of the judicial system. Because you know, this practice itself is very complicated. He will learn. Because they are the court of this, they are the original jurisdictional court, and he will learn how to start the work, how to write a plaint, how to write a written statement, how to write all these questions. So ultimately, the research which will lead you towards your goal in your life, what you want to do, that has to be reflected in the choice of your internship. If you can merge these two, you can do really well in your life. Otherwise, sometimes, you know, there are many people in the litigation also, you find many people to be very, they get frustrated after a certain time, and sometimes they find that it is not suiting me. But I will tell you, this is a subject where you can turn to be anything. And particularly today's world, when you have a access to become a publisher, writer, everything, because of your connectivity with the social media. Because nowadays we are not dependent on any publisher to publish anymore. We can ourselves become the publisher of our own writing by writing the blogs, as Gautam Bhattia's blog has been referred by Mrs. Bagchi today, and there are other blogs, legal blogs we have seen. These are really interesting. Another thing I'll tell you, contribution in education. This can be a really good area of internship. Somebody may apply to become an intern under a professor of law at a law school. that will teach you how to grow your research ability, because we don't know, we do not learn these things like how to make a footnote, how to give a footnote, how to make it more authentic, what is the authenticity of a document, how to write something, how to give a reference. These are very essential. You can see the Supreme Court judgments today's style, particularly Justice Chandrachud's judgment. If you go through, you will find the footnotes, you will find the methods followed in the law school. These are the areas of learning we need to learn, so that this is another area we can actually approach them. We can approach our teachers that, sir, ma'am, we want to do an internship under you. Internship doesn't mean that learning this methodology of arguments in the court or something. If you are interested in academia, you should go to a law college, law school, and approach the teachers and help them in their research work, which will give you more knowledge, which will give you more ability, and on the basis of which you will do excellent in your life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. So, ma'am, again, a question is there for you. Ma'am, Shantani ma'am, this question is for you. Will it be beneficial to do LLM from CU and then go for any jobs in the corporate sector? Hello, Shantani ma'am, are you there?
Yes, am I audible?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
See, there's no such requirement that you have to, again, everything boils down to the same. Rajashri, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
Am I? All right. So all that I have to say about this question is that everything boils down to the same thing once again, and that is your interest, what you wish to do with yourself. If you think that LLM will take you to a specific direction, it will add to the existing knowledge, you can do it from anywhere, right? Not necessarily CU or not necessarily a national law school. And please do not be under the impression that if you do it from a national law school, you would stand at a higher pedestal. That is not at all the case, right? We have seen people who have come from traditional law universities. I myself come from a national law university, as well as my basic knowledge I have acquired from a traditional law university, right? And for example, if I would, this would be my privilege to share this experience that I had with Professor Chakrabarty. I remember once he was of the opinion, he was talking about Bentham's theory of utilitarianism in class, and at that particular moment, he shared his experience. He had his professor, Professor Ahmed, who taught him something, and that took him to the National Library, and he spent hours, researching on that particular aspect. And of course, parallelly, he was also teaching the theory of utilitarianism to us. And something struck me, and I felt that what am I doing with myself? I'm just coming to college, turning up for classes, recording my attendance, and going back home and going to sleep. That's it. That's what I'm doing with myself. So immediately, what I did, I went to the library, got hold of the book written by Bentham, A Theory of Legislation, and I went through it without understanding. Trust me, I was not in a position to decode the language, because of course the language that he had used was definitely his erudition is unparalleled. So somehow I went through it all throughout the night, and the next morning I went to him and I told him, sir, this is what I have done. And he told me, yes, very good, very, very well done. So something, he just kind of appreciated my effort. And from there I learned. And also in the second occasion, as I was just talking about, that what do you think, what do you need in an academician? He, again, coming to another example of Professor Chakrabarty, I remember once when I was in my second semester, probably, he had asked me to write the difference between a tort and a crime. So I had done it, and finally I stood first in the class. So he said that whoever stands first gets a bond bill, right? So I still have that wrapper with me in my diary. And whenever I turn the pages and I see that, this is still there with me, and it inspires me somehow as an academician, that I have had the opportunity of learning from such erudite people, from such wonderful people, and that brings me here today. So I think this question that you people, most of you must be having in your minds, whether to do it from CU or to do it from a national law school, I think it is absolutely immaterial, people. And you can do it from anywhere. And at the end of the day, what matters is your own thirst, your own thirst to know the subject, to love the subject, and kind of attain expertise over it. So that's it. So never, I think this question from here or from here, it can be an academic question, it can be a national question. What matters is how you deal with it, right? So I think this is all I have to say.
Thanks, Anthony, for such I can remember those days, and to be very honest, I might have got on to a different level with the ladder, but I would have had absolutely no regrets. While if I would have still been a teacher education. So
Definitely, sir.
it's really what I personally believe is that it's all about uh, the passion, the love that you have for your profession, and the most important thing is that you need to be very honest with yourself, and you need to be a very good human being. You should not be the subject matter of sell. That's the only thing that I would say, irrespective of the challenge that's on the other side. It's very difficult, I'll tell you. It's very difficult, and all of us must have compromised in some life. But I still believe that so-called benefits that we think from we should not do that. And that's my first and foremost word for everybody. I think that's something that I've been having for from day one from my father. That's I can still remember his words, and everything that I am today, when it comes to honesty, is because of him. Because because he was a chartered accountant, and he was very good. He stood 22nd an All India CA exam, and he was the gold medalist, first class, everything from Calcutta University, and coming from a rural background, and that's amazing. And I can still remember those days when the people come down with boxes of gifts and cash times, and he refusing them and not compromising on ethics and things. And so I think it's very important that all of us should learn from the basic things of life, which you can learn from a rickshaw puller. You can learn from anybody. It is very important that you become a good human being first, and then anything else, I think. And if you have that objective, I think irrespective of the profession, irrespective of the choice that you make, you're definitely going to be the perfect person for that profession. I think that's my belief.
Definitely, sir.
Sir, we have a question for you.
Yeah.
That is waiting for you, Raj. What is the scope for practicing of artificial intelligence law in India, and what is the prospectus of the same?
Yeah, I'll tell you. First of all, we need to know we need to understand what is this AI. Artificial intelligence is something which can only prosper, which can only work when there is data, and so-called the concept of big data. And let me tell you that. Especially those people who are planning to work on artificial intelligence, it's important that we know that we are generating a lot of data. Even these are recorded, the things that we are doing right now, and they are stored for a considerable span of time, at least 10 years or more, according to the laws. Now, when we are in a position of generating this amount of data, it's absolutely impossible for human intervention to study all these things and put a research on that. It's just like a Turnitin software which is trying to identify the plagiarized aspects or similar aspects that's there in your journal or in an article that you've written. So it's searching millions and millions of documents. And then he is comparing your work and generating a report which is so precise, and you get that in a span of 10 to 15 minutes. Now, this is because of the data that's available. Now, artificial intelligence has a lot of demerits, and the demerit lie in certain places, like when there is a heterogeneity in the people are of various gender. Then the artificial intelligence at majority of these cases fail. Well, practicing on AI at this juncture, I would say is good, but where we don't have electricity for 15 days in a country, in a state, in a city, which is like called Calcutta, because of some storm, and we don't have internet connectivity for even today. I think we don't have connectivity in the NUJS campus because there's some repair work going on. And see, it's difficult. It's difficult to be a successful practitioner with many number of cases when you're only specializing on artificial intelligence, and you plan to be in Kolkata and be a professional. So I think, this question came up to me in the year 2009 when I opt for a course on cyber laws at NUJS. Now that is something which is like, I'll not say that any learning that you go through will not really generate or reap a benefit. It will, definitely it will. But when you're talking about the right choice for a practitioner in a span of next 5 years or next 7 years, I would suggest that you may focus on medical legal aspects. That is something where you have a lot of cases coming up in the years to come, and especially when you have inclination towards AI. Like very recently, I was working on Taylor and Francis paper on medical law and privacy laws. Like, it's an admixture. We're working on that particular thing right now. We are writing this particular paper, and I was going through a lot of issues like this. Like there are n number of cases if you talk about privacy in per se, and if you talk about artificial intelligence and how it is going to affect our privacy, it's like, it's a different. It'll take 1 hour for me to explain everything about. We really don't have any right to privacy if you are talking about big data. If you're talking about things now, it's strange to equate laws of a land with the law. I'm talking about, like, a literal sense, law of the land with the law of the web. It's very difficult to apply these two. It's very difficult, and we are in that particular position of difficulty. And yes, we are working on to an amicable, solution to this. Well, I'm not sure when it's going to come down. The European Union have a very conservative approach towards this. The Americans have a very liberal approach towards this. Indians have an admixture of both, but nowadays they're more inclined towards the American laws. So the day when the Americans decided to lift away with their lockdown, India followed suit, so that the main international supply chain that can be done through India carry on with that particular process. So there are many other things that's there. So once you are inclined towards artificial intelligence, I think it's something which will be relevant in almost all part of the world after 10 years from today. And if you're passing out today, I don't think it's the right choice to start practicing and working on artificial intelligence at this moment. But if you're planning for academia, that's a very good option. You can study this and you take yourself to the next level. Yes, sir.
Sir, I would like to just add one thing, that rather the students should work on this issue of privacy altogether, because a lot of issues are coming up in the area of privacy. because of the uses of mobile phone and smartphone. A lot of things are happening. I think soon there will be a flood of cases in terms of breach of privacy which are happening. You know, even somebody is taking a screenshot, sending it to someone, somebody is using the voice recording, using it for any other purpose. These are the things which will be filled in future litigation area. So the privacy area needs to be developed, and as a part of which artificial intelligence, I am with you, sir, completely. It will take 10 years to come for a dispute because it's a subject which is at very nebulous stage in India. Thank you.
Yes, the first step is privacy, and the next step of litigation or next stage of litigation will be AI.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, any other question, Rajeshri?
Thank you, SPC sir.
I think there was another follow-up question. I think, I just got it. So what is the scope for doing honors in LLB? Well, I will tell that,
Yes, sir.
I am not an LLB honors, to be very precise, because I was with Srinath Law College during my LLB days, and my year, from my year, the honors started. And my professors and we were together, fond of each other. My professors do not want a set of good people to leave the college and go to Hajra to pursue. So we decided to go with the decision of our faculties, even when that was informal. That was not a formal one. And we decided to carry on with our 5 years in Srinath and learn law, and not to take up the honors course. So I personally think that it's all about not having a specific experience. Like, you don't know how you feel if you have not traveled on a rocket. So it's something like that. So for me, it's okay. It's not a problem. For me, as an outsider, I would say that it's perhaps a couple of more subjects that you have to study. And more interestingly, perhaps that 2 or 3 subjects were the main subjects that would get you the so-called marks and so-called things. But I think definitely it's not the same case with those people who have studied those papers. And I think, if I would have taken up the honors papers, I would have taken up those papers with thorough interest and learn more about those aspects. So I think, if you get an opportunity to study more, there's no harm in choosing an honors. Unless and until you have a good, a family and you don't want to leave that family and go out.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Okay. So Saheli, there is one question for you. That would you please tell about the international internships during this quarantine situation?
I just couldn't hear anything.
Hello,
I'll just read the question from
here. Can you the international internships during this quarantine situation?
To start with, the first thing that we need to understand is that none of the internships are going to be in presence. Let it be an internship under an advocate, or for that matters, an internship under any social organization. So if we are referring to any international organization, I'll be speaking from the periphery of what my specializations are. I'm doing from space law and from the refugee law. So if I may say so, there are several social organizations as well as the statutory organizations which you can look into. India doesn't have any statutory organizations with reference to space law because India doesn't even have a space law. But if you are referring to any other international internships, there are several. Let's say you are primarily more interested in international trade law. You can look into certain organizations from United Nations where there are certain branches where you can speak to the people, not just work as an intern. You can even join as a, for example, somebody who is a PhD scholar, you can assist him. You can even work with a professor who's working in that periphery, who is maybe not a professor of India, might be a professor somewhere else. Let's say I can speak about James Hathaway, who is a professor in Michigan University. He He is a luminary in the field of international refugee law. So if you wish to do an internship under him, nothing like it, because you would learn from the very point A to point Z about refugee law, or even for that matter, Chimney sir, who is in right now in India. You can speak to him because he is considered as a luminary, as a third world scholar, and he doesn't just speak about international law, he also speaks about constitutional law. Try looking into internships with these individuals. And if you're looking as organization internships, why don't you try with ALCO, Asian African Legal Consultative Organizations? You can try with them because they have peripheries about law of seas if you're interested in that. There is also a subject which is the dispute, negotiation, arbitration, even for conciliation and negotiations. Why don't you try with them? And what I insist is, we know litigation as good or bad it is. Why don't we try looking into the ADR mechanism, because that's the growth that's happening. And let me just include in, there are students who are coming up with a startup. The law students are coming up with their own startups where they are like asking people to come to them for mediation, for arbitration, for negotiation. One of them is ODR now, which has changed into SAMA. That is that is an online medium. How online they utilize people for coming cases to them, and they refer to them for mediation, arbitration, or conciliation. If you have your own startup ideas also, you can go ahead with it. But apart from that, the ADR is something that is increasing day by day, and also it's not the very fact that it's national, it's also international, because we're referring to corporate companies who have their register of principal uh, somewhere else in some other countries. You can try looking into doing internship with these organizations also who work with the ADR. And another field that Sir was also speak about, artificial intelligence. Why don't we all try for looking for McGill or these kinds of organizations in just not learning, but also learning the procedure, how do they go about it? Because let's say there is some firms in USA who just do work with air law, which is the aircraft. There's also some firms in Bangalore also who just work with, let's say, Vistara or any aircraft companies. So they are just specialized in doing these things only. If you want to intern under them, not just that you gain a knowledge of these laws which are not taught in your law school, but you also learn how the procedure, what is the procedure that works in these things, because it is not the same procedure that runs through your own normal ordinary writ cases, or maybe a bail petition, or etc. like that. So that's a different law. There's a different organizations for each, and firms or advocate or individual. So these are the various peripheries that you can intern under during this quarantine.
Thank you, Saheli. I would like to end the session now. So before ending it, I would like to thanks to all the speakers who are present today with us. Thank for all the informations and your priceless, valuable knowledge that you have shared with us today. So hope to see you soon all. And before ending again, I would say that stay safe, stay healthy.
Her network is not safe yet.
Hello?
Hello. Thank
Am
you.
I audible?
You're audible. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. Yeah. Do well. You also stay safe.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.